murder.
Simon Israel. Now, it was meant to be the solution to the sick note culture. The introduction of the Employment and Support Allowance, along with a tough new medical test, was designed to get more people off benefits and back to work. But an investigation for this programme has shown that the system itself is not working, causing a record backlog in appeals that is costing taxpayers many millions of pounds. On the day that the government publishes a review outlining serious flaws in the sickness benefit system, our social affairs editor Jackie Long has this special report on the revolving doors that are failing both the genuinely sick and the taxpayer.
Sick or just skiving? The government says too many people are unwilling to work rather than unwell.
Long-term sickness benefit, too often abused as an excuse for being out of work, will bring an end to the something-for-nothing culture that is a promise we made and a promise we are delivering.
Getting people off the sick and back into work is one of the key planks of the government's economic strategy. But we've discovered flaws in the system may be making the problem worse, not better. Massive delays and repeated appeals are having profound consequences for the claimants, the courts, the taxpayers and the entire government work programme.
They're up early queuing at Stoke-on-Trent Citizens Advice Bureau, even before it opens. Many of the people here today have come because they've been deemed fit for work, but they don't agree, and they want help to appeal. Staff say it's an issue now dominating their workload.
There's been this huge upsurge in the numbers of appeals. There's not a day goes by that people aren't coming through the door with them. We've never known that. We have never known anything like that before. I've worked in welfare benefits since 1983 and it has never, ever, we've never had one benefit, one sort of appeal that just dominates the landscape like this is doing.
Evidence, many argue, of a system in crisis. The consequence, claimants trapped in a revolving door. Everyone claiming the new sickness benefit has to have a medical assessment. Many of those found fit to work appeal, and at their hearing, the decision can be overturned. They're found unfit for work, and their benefit is reinstated. But we found people are then being recalled almost immediately for a new assessment, which once again finds them fit for work. That happened to Rosanna Cartwright.
Hi, would you like a cup of tea, Jackie?
She's partially deaf and was diagnosed with musculoskeletal problems 2 years ago. She gave up her job as a barmaid and applied for the new sickness benefit, Employment and Support Allowance, or ESA. At her medical assessment, she scored 0 points. Now that means she wasn't deemed to have any health issues preventing her from working. She disagreed, appealed and won, with her score at the tribunal soaring.
I went for the tribunal hearing and I scored 15 or 16 points.
So you went from naught
from
to
naught
15?
To 15.
From being found fit for work to being found
unfit for work, yeah.
Her benefit was reinstated, but the process had taken so long that within just a few months it was time for her to have a new assessment.
They failed me again. I was dead disappointed.
They found you fit for work and not eligible anymore for ESA.
I did get upset about it, cried a little bit, you know, when I got home. But my husband said, oh, appeal again, you know, so that's why I'm appealing again now.
She's come to Citizens Advice for help with her second appeal. And she's one of many people they are seeing bouncing between benefit claims, appeals and back again.
So I'm just appealing again now, and I've got to go on the 5th of December.
That's for another tribunal
hearing.
There's clearly a huge mismatch between what the medical assessors deem fit to work and what tribunals then decide. And critics of the system point to significant flaws in the assessments, which have been highlighted by repeated official reports.
We've seen a real increase in the numbers of people who've been successful. The tribunals awarded them their benefit back, but then they go to a medical and they're being knocked off the benefit again, and so they're having to go back through the cycle.
The story here in Stoke is one being repeated in advice centres across the UK. More and more people are getting stuck in a system which is refusing to accept the verdict of its own appeal process.
Channel 4 News contacted 30 advice centres across Britain. Every single one said they had clients on their second or even third appeal. And that's putting enormous pressure on the courts, with some tribunals being forced to sit on Saturday. We've discovered the number of ESA appeals has quadrupled in 2 years, rocketing from 68,000 in 2009 to a projected 240,000 by the end of this financial year. And the cost to the taxpayer is staggering. £80 million so far, and rising.
This system is flawed, and the fact that that amount of money is being spent on dealing with the consequences of those flawed decisions is hugely inefficient. And for a government that's talking about trying to save money and trying to be more efficient, it strikes me as crazy that they haven't addressed this properly yet.
Even people who lose their appeal and so have been found fit for work twice are heading back into the system. Wayne Allingham is a Falklands veteran who lives just outside Gateshead. He suffered mental and physical health problems since leaving the army 30 years ago. He says he falls over frequently, most recently onto his face. In April, an assessment found him fit to work, and a tribunal came to the same conclusion. But as the whole process has taken more than 6 months, he's entitled to make a new claim for ESA on the same grounds. And that's exactly what he's doing.
The system obviously must be flawed somewhere, because I'm now going to have to go through the whole process again, which is going to take another, 8-9 months plus, and I'm going to go back through the whole lot again. But I know I'm going to fail again.
So what the government intended for people like Mr. Allingham, that once found fit for work they would go onto the work programme, is not happening. So is Mr. Allingham playing the system, or is the system failing him?
You've been declared not fit from work by 2 doctors, one at the hospital, one at GP surgery. You're going through the benefit system and they're telling you you are fit for work, but then your GP and doctor at the hospital are saying you're not fit for work. So who are you meant to actually believe in the end?
Even though he refuses to accept the judgment of the courts, Mr. Allingham and many like him are being backed in their decision to reapply for ESA by Citizens Advice.
We all see people who lose their appeals and then have really no choice but to go straight back into the system again, because they're not able to sign on. They wouldn't be able to manage even getting to a job centre and coping with the job search. So their only possible way of getting any money at all is to go back onto Employment and Support Allowance.
And all of this is a problem gathering pace for the government. If it can't get ESA right, it may struggle to get its work programme to work properly too. Kirsty McHugh represents the very people due to make money out of the work programme, the private companies and charities who will be paid for every person they get into work. But they're sending out this early warning.
The amount of referrals we're getting are well down from where we expected. We're expecting about 20% of the referrals overall to be people coming through on Employment Support Allowance. We're actually finding only 3 to 5%, so a significant proportion lower than we thought.
And in Stoke, the picture is the same. Plenty of people spending their time fighting ESA decisions, but not many getting ready to go back to work.
Very, very few people are getting moved on into jobs, which is what this is really meant to be about. It's meant to be about people being better off because they get into work. There's very, very few people in this area that's happening for.
And unless the flaws in the system are fixed, the government's welfare to work revolution simply won't happen.
Well, we're joined now by the Employment Minister, Chris Grayling. Chris Grayling, revolution is exactly what you were talking about, 1 million people back into work from sickness. Well, there's no prospect of that, is there?
Well, I've never said 1 million people back into work from sickness, but I don't recognise much of what I've heard in the report. I mean, the first thing is a lot of the circumstances we've heard relate to the system that we changed. The changes we introduced in May, June of this year as a result of the independent report carried out into the system we inherited by Professor Malcolm Harrington, those simply will not have now shown through in the appeal process.
Yeah,
as we're standing here today,
is,
none of those people have yet come to appeal for the first time.
But irrespective of what's in the pipeline, what we have found out there is chaos. Well, not only chaos, but really human suffering. I mean, you take Suzanne Cartwright. There she's partial hearing, she's been diagnosed with serious illness since 2 years ago, and she gets assessed, wins her appeal as being unfit to work, as immediately has to go back into reassessment again.
Well, I mean, it's certainly the case that we inherited a flawed system. Somebody in her situation, I hope, would now be found and dealt with by Job Centre Plus at a reconsideration process. One of the problems we had prior to this year was that the tribunals were seeing medical evidence for the first time that Job Centre Plus, who take the decisions, had never seen. We've now changed the system so that we have a reconsideration within Job Centre Plus. We specifically ask people who feel the decision taken initially is wrong. They have the chance to bring back decisions, bring back information to us then from their consultants, from their specialists, and we take decisions carefully now within Job Centre Plus.
But
I freely admit what we inherited before was not working.
Well, you can blame inheritance, but the fact is, with inheritance, you can always say, stop right now, let's stop these revolving doors. You haven't. These orders to go back to be reassessed are going on all the time, and it means that people like her, people like Wayne Allingham are being reassessed, and the result always ends up being the same.
Well, the reassessment process is correct. You've got 3 different categories of people who go through the assessment process. Those who moved into what's called the support group, who are deemed to never be able to work, will carry on receiving and do receive unconditional support. Those who are found fit for work go down to Job Centre Plus, and 3 months later will be referred automatically to the work programme. In the middle, we have a group of people who have the potential in due course to return to work. And yes, it's right and proper that we do assess those people on a regular basis, perhaps in 1 or 2 cases too soon, but we also now provide all of those people, every single one of them, with access to the work programme, with access to specialist support, and indeed one of the things we've changed this autumn as a result of identifying early issues with the referrals to ESA, every single person in that group is now going to a work programme meeting, given the chance to volunteer for back-to-work support straight away.
But at root, isn't the truth that the person you'd like to get out of this equation is the GP? And that's actually what the recommendations even today that have been published, or will be published next week.
Well, the GP is always in a very difficult situation.
Yeah, but you want them out of it, don't you?
Well, an individual's GP is not the best placed person to say to them,
yeah, but
actually,
do you want
really
them out of the equation? That's what I'm asking.
I think we should not be asking an individual's GP to decide whether they are fit for long-term benefit support or not. I think it's unfair on the GP. It compromises the relationship between that person and the GP. That's why we look for specialist evidence within Job Centre Plus and not simply a letter from the GP.
Chris Grayling, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
The Foreign Secretary has told Syrian opposition leaders that they need to set aside their differences and agree a common platform for the future of their country. William Hague met representatives of several opposition groups at the Foreign Office in London today.
But I've also emphasised the importance to them